Gopijana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Anjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Anjana Yamunati Yavanachari Yamunati Yavanachari Jaya Punjabi Gopijana Vallabha Givadari Shudanandana Vajanandana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radhama Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Ishkan Gurvind ki, Prabhupada ki, Srila Extenta Saraswati Prabhupada ki, Shri Krishna ki, Nitya. So, I forgot my glasses. I don't know if anyone's got glasses that might work. Otherwise, I'll just do my best. I think so today is the disappearance of Extended Saraswati. And I was just reading that Prabhupada's appearance and disappearance make no difference. Just like that. The sage was asked to give some blessings, and to the butcher he said, don't die, because if you live you're taking much bad karma. It's not good, and if you die you can't conceive of the suffering you have to go through. For the Brahmacharya it was don't live, die, because you're situated, then better that you die now before anything goes wrong. And for the prince is live, don't die. You're enjoying now, but when you die you have so much reaction. And for the devotee it was live or die at litter. So Prabhupada says that the appearance and disappearance of the spiritual master is on the absolute plane. It doesn't matter where he is, he's 100% engaged in devotional service, and he's always acting under Krishna's direction. And whatever they're doing, they're setting a standard, setting example. Acharya, setting a standard where for us to follow. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur was born as Mo Prasad Dutt on February 6, 1874 in Puri. Father Bhaktivedanta Thakur prayed for a son to help him in his preaching. There's a term prayed for of Vishnu. There's a book called Ray of Vishnu, which is about Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati. When Prasad was 6 months old, the carts of the Jagannath festival stopped at the gate of Bhaktivedanta residence, and for 3 days they could not be moved. Bhaktivedanta Thakur brought onto the cart and approached the deity of Lord Jagannath. Spontaneously, the child extended his arms and touched the feet of Lord Jagannath, and was immediately with a garland that fell from the body of the Lord. When Bhaktivedanta Thakur learned that the Lord's garland fell on his son, he realized that indeed this was the son whom he had prayed. I proved that. By the time Bhima Prasad was 7 years old, he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita and could even explain its verses. Anyone here 7? Over 7? Haridarshan, what age are you? 12. Did you memorize the Bhagavad Gita 5 years ago? Anybody here know the whole Bhagavad Gita? Ashish? Ishan, you know it? I thought you were going to put your hand up there. Yes, so his father then began training him in proofreading and printing in conjunction with the publishing of Vaishnava magazine Sadhana. With his father, he visited many villages and heard discourses from learned hearts. By the time he was 25, he had become well versed in Sanskrit, mathematics, and astronomy, and he had established himself as the author and publisher of many magazines, articles, and book Surya Siddhanta, for he received the epithet Siddhanta Saraswati in recognition of his erudition. When he was 20, his father guided him to take initiation from a renowned Vaishnava saint, Gaur Kishordas Babaji. In 1905, Siddhanta Saraswati took a vow to chant the Hare Krishna mantra 1 billion times. Does anybody know why he took that vow? Thank you. Yep. So that's right. Residing in Mayapur in a grass hut near the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, he had a Hare Krishna mantra day and night. When the rain water through the grass ceiling, beneath and rail chanting. Quite a bit of rain here recently. Can you imagine? Passing away of his father in 1904 and his spiritual master in 15, Siddhanta Saraswati continued the mission of Lord Chaitanya. He assumed the editorship of Sajjana Toshni and established the Bhagavad Press in Krishnanagar. In 1918, he sat down before a picture of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and initiated himself into international order, not to be imitated by me. So if any of you show up wearing your son yes garb tomorrow, he wouldn't be authorized. At this time, he assumed the sannyas title Bhakti Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. Bhaktivedanta was dedicated to utilizing the printing press as the best medium for large-scale distribution of Krishna consciousness. He thought of the printing press as a big mridanga or a big mridanga, while the ordinary mridanga can only be heard for a block or two in kirtan. With the printing press, the message of Lord Chaitanya can be spread all over the world. Hence, we have the Christmas book distribution marathon. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur also excavated Lord Chaitanya's appearance place at the Yoga Pit in Sridham, Mayapur, and built a beautiful Gaudiya Mat temple there. He established many Gaudiya Mat temples all over India, printed Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangala, Prema, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So once again, not always to follow in the footsteps of all the activities of the acharyas, but he was known as Singha Guru. Does anybody know what Singha Guru means? He was like a lion. His preaching was very forceful. He wasn't timid. And Prabhupada says that devotee can be like a lamb or like a mouse at the temple, but like a lion when preaching in the field. It doesn't mean to say necessarily we just go out in the street and start yelling at people or scaring them away. But because he was such a pure devotee and of Krishna, then when he's seen Mayavadis preaching, he would chastise them very severely. He'd grab them by the scruff and say, "Why are you cheating? Why are you cheating these people?" Because one who actually knows Krishna is God, they can't stand to hear somebody telling people, "Oh, there is no God. Krishna is just a product of material energy, maybe a mode of goodness or something like that. It manifests from the Brahman." But of course, we know Krishna says, "Brahmana hi pratistaham." So anyway, before the passing away on January the 1st, 1937, he instructed Srila Prabhupada to become a very good English preacher and to print books wherever he would get money. His last words to the devotees were, "Please accept my blessings to you all, present and absent. Please bear in mind that our sole duty and religion is to spread and propagate service to the Lord and his devotees." So, bearing that in mind, that is not just for his disciples, that's for all of the followers. Shabak Santa Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, entitled Prahlad, the Saintly Son of Hiranyakashipu, text number 8. I'll just read it from this. Griham Anitya Anatam Ahuya. Griham Anitam Ahuya. Praradam Daitya Yajaka. Praradam Daitya Yajaka. Prashasya Shlakshnaya Vacha. Prashasya Shlakshnaya Vacha. Samaprichanta Samabi. Samaprichanta Samabi. Grihamanitamahuya. Praradam Dajayajaka. Prashasya Shlakshnaya Vacha. Samaprichanta Samabi. Grihamanitamahi Ahuya. Praradam Dajayajaka. Prashasya Shlakshnaya Vacha. Samaprichanta Samabi. Grihamanitamahuya. Praradam Dajayajaka. Prashasya Shlakshnaya Vacha. Samaprichanta Samabi. Please chant. Messages. Griham, to the place of the teachers, Sanda Anamarka. Anitam brought Ahuya, calling Praradam, Pralad, Datayajaka, the priests of the demon Hiranyakashipu, Prashasya, by pacifying Shlakshnaya with a very mild Vacha voice, Samaprichanta, the questioned, Samabi, by very agreeable words. Translation. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Pralad back to the Gurukul, the place where the Brahmins taught the boys, the priests of the demons, Sanda and Amarka, pacified him. With very mild voices and affectionate words, they inquired from him as follows. Please repeat. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Pralad back to the Gurukul, the place where the Brahmins taught the boys, the priests of the demons, Sanda and Amarka, pacified him with very mild voices and affectionate words. They inquired from him as follows. So Prabhupada's purport. Sanda and Amarka, the purport, we don't usually, you can repeat the word purport as well if you like. Sanda and Amarka, the priests of the demons, were eager to know from Prahlad Maharaj who were the Vaishnavas, who the Vaishnavas were that came to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. Their purpose was to discover the names of these Vaishnavas. In the beginning, they did not threaten the boy because when threatened, he might not identify the real culprits. Therefore, they very mildly and peacefully inquired as follows. Om Gyanantamarandasya Gyananjana Slakaya Chakshurumlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhakam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Garimya Kripa Tamam Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhanitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukul, the place where the Brahmins taught the boys, the priests of the demons, Sanda and Amarka, pacified him with very mild voices and affectionate words. They inquired from him as follows. Does anybody remember who's the father of Sanda and Amarka? Sukracharya. Exactly. So these teachers, they weren't just like a couple of council-appointed teachers from local authorities. Sukracharya was the spiritual master of the demons, and these were his sons teaching. So Prahlad, being the favoured son of Hiranyakashipu. Now Hiranyakashipu, he wasn't just a king, maybe even more than an emperor. Emperor means like over many kingdoms normally, doesn't it? But he was actually controlling everything. Even the demigods were under his watch. They were afraid to make a move without his consent. He had such control. He was so powerful. So these these were the choices of teachers for Prahlad. And Hiranyakashipu was very upset when he heard Prahlad Maharaj speaking about devotional service, because the Vaishnavas are the sworn enemies of Hiranyakashipu, because they're devotees of Vishnu, who killed his brother Hiranyaksha. And as we see this story unfolding, see, first of all, that Hiranyakashipu can't consider that his son could be a devotee. He must be getting some bad influence. Just like sometimes kids come home from school, right, and they might say something or do something, and they want to know, who have you been speaking with? Who taught you this? You didn't learn this at home. And and generally considered Jesi Sangha Vesi Ranga. So by the association you keep or that you get, then that'll have an effect on you. So immediately Hiranyakashipu is thinking, who's been contaminating my boy with this Vaishnava philosophy nonsense? Of course, he's a demon, so he's thinking what is pure is contaminated, and what's contaminated is actually pure. So just like I had this experience, I was distributing books in Princes Street in Edinburgh, and this so-called follower of Jesus Christ came in and gave me a good blasting that I was an offender because we follow these 4 regulative principles. So you must have been reading Prabhupada. He says, you're an offender to God because God's given you this world to enjoy, and you're not enjoying it, so therefore you're blaspheming God. So with a cigarette in his hand, a girl on his arm, and his drink from his breath, he walked into McDonald's. All he needed was a scratch card, and he did the whole 4 regulative principles. So if only it was so easy. No, but no way. This human life is meant for tapasya. Even in their own leader, Jesus Christ, they don't see that example. No, he's not setting that example. But this is spoken about in Bhagavad Gita. What is daytime for the devotee is night time for the demon. So not, of course, sometimes the demons work all night as well, and they sleep during the day. Sometimes people don't see daylight for months, not because it's Scotland and it's winter time, but because they sleep all day and then they party all night. And this has such a detrimental effect to the well-being of our mind. We're not meant to be like that. So when the devotee is attracted to certain aspects of life and they're repelled, even we have our bad habits still maybe lingering there in our mind or whatever, but we know that they're wrong, and we know we're working to disassociate ourselves from these, and we're accepting these regulative principles of freedom. So these regulative principles are not there just to make life difficult for us, so Christians say, oh, try this and let me laugh at you struggling with it. He's not some kind of sadist. But we become attached in this material world by these different religious principles, and they're detrimental for us. So the first thing Prahlad was speaking about, he was preaching to his classmates and had them do kirtan. And when the teachers came back into the class, then they wanted to find out who was this culprit, who was guilty of this nonsense, chanting the holy names of God in class. Just like when we were kids, sometimes the teacher would go out. I don't know if you well-behaved youngsters experienced it, but sometimes the teacher would go out to class, and then there'd be just all sorts of mischief going on. People would be like running around the class or chucking things at each other or writing stuff on the board and quickly back to your seat and dude on up to it. Or swap seats around and see if the teacher notices when you come back in. So it's just the nature of the mind, the rascal mind, is to be up to mischief as soon as you give them a little breather. And that's like us as well. we want to come to this material world to enjoy, and we say, oh, and this Bhajan Jeev Jago Gora Chanda Bola Kota Nida Jaumai Pisa Chirikoli. This is part 1 and 2 of Arunadaya Kirtan. And the Jiva is saying, oh, Krishna, I won't forget you. I'll remember you. I just want to enjoy for a little bit and then I'll come back. Go into the material world for a little holiday, a little adventure. And then once I had my adventure, then I'll be back soon, don't worry. I promise. But then what Chaitanya says, having forgotten this promise, we've remained in great ignorance and we've forgotten our real life. So Prahlad Maharaj, he's trying to remind his dear friends, dear demoniac friends, if you hear the narration. There was one recording the devotees did back in the 70s. It's quite humorous and very poetic as well. Prahlad Maharaj, also very sweetly, this word shoot. There's a word mentioned. Shlakshnaya. It means very mild. So he's speaking very mildly. The teachers speak mildly to him because they want to extract some information from him. And even the demons had some kind of culture there. And Prahlad Maharaj also, he was speaking very mildly and pleasingly to his classmates. My dear demoniac friends, where do you want to spend your life? He split it up into different categories. What was the first category? First 25 playing ball. Next 25 years, the next 50 years, get entangled in household life. And then after that, simply deteriorating, suffering the deterioration of the body. It gets old, we can't enjoy any longer. So renunciation of this material world, to do this in their youth, is such a great sacrifice to make to please Krishna. When one is old and worn and useless, then to renounce when we've got no power to enjoy, then that's it's better than nothing. But we should, as soon as we become aware of this Krishna consciousness, then we should take to it. And that's why we're all here now. Because at some point in our life, Krishna brought us to the association of devotees, and we were fortunate to be able to take it up to some degree. Of course, everybody has their own time. So even if one hears about Krishna at the very end of their life, then that is very fortunate. Just like there was one devotee, Harikesh Prabhu was Swami at the time, and he was preaching in Russia and Eastern European countries, and he was taking great risks. He was risking his life to preach. And there was some skirmish went on where one young Russian soldier was shot and he was dying. And Harikesh Maharaj was dressed in suit and tie. He was kind of preaching incognito at very dangerous times back in the 80s. And as the soldier was dying, he went up to him. He was lying on the ground, and he said, "Who are you?" You could see there was some kind of effulgence from him. You could tell there was something special about him. He says, "I'm Krishna." Of course, he's not thinking he's Krishna, but he just wanted him to hear the name Krishna. So he says, "Oh, Krishna," and that's the way. And the report was that, he just became immediately very purified. But at the time of death, he chanted the whole name of Krishna. So Krishna makes the arrangements for the time, place, and circumstance of all the living entities. And he got his chance as soon as he heard about Krishna. Then he was very fortunate to get that blessing. Prahlad Maharaj was also trying to give this great fortune to his classmates. And it wasn't appreciated by Hiranyakashipu when he asked him, "My dear son, come sit in my lap. Learned. What's the best thing you've learned in school?" "My dear father, I haven't learned anything. I've just learned how to lie and cheat." And Hiranyakashipu says, "That sounds perfectly complete." And he was disturbed that Prahlad was out with this stuff. So when the teachers approached him, then they thought, okay, we're in big trouble here. If we can't find out who's causing this, we're going to get the receiving end. We're going to have our heads lopped off. So they tried to find out from Prahlad. So they wanted to question him using pleasing words very mildly, so that he didn't feel threatened and close up. And we'll find that Prahlad Maharaj, he is devoted already, even before he was born, when the demigods were considering one powerful demon, Hiranyakashipu, was enough, with the sun coming into the world, and how can we deal with more than one big demon like him? Demigods were thinking like this. And Narada Muni appeared in the scene and said that you cannot harm this child because he's protected by Vishnu. He's already a Vaishnava, pure devotee. And so Prahlad Maharaj, he was basically preaching this verse: Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pasavanam Archanam Vandanam Dasham Sakya Atmani Vedanam. So it just so happens that on this day, in 1975, which is 48 years ago, Srila Prabhupada spoke on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappears. And some of the verses here are quite relevant. Pravittim cha navrittim cha jana na vidur asura nashocham na priya chacharo na satyam teju vidyate. So here, this is from the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So the demoniac don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. And as we were saying earlier, that they often think that which shouldn't be done is that which should be done, and that's what shouldn't be done, or that which should be done shouldn't be done. And they can't understand how devotees can live the life they do, giving up certain things, doing certain things. They think, oh, you must be bored. But they don't remember they're actually bored. They're the ones that are chewing the chewed. So from this verse, Krishna is explaining the symptoms of the demons. Pravittam cha navrittam cha. So pravritti means inclination, the one is inclined, and nivritti means disinclination. So Prabhupada explains that this inclination and disinclination is going on with all the living entities, the insects, the birds, the beasts, etc. Then they all have their attractions and repulsions, their inclinations and disinclinations. And we see, according to Bhagavad Gita, the different modes of material natures. People in different modes are attracted by certain things. I remember one devotee, Pushkar, giving a class, and he said, if you have a hog and you set him down to a nice plate of halava, and he'll say, my dear sir, thank you, but I'm not interested. Just give me a nice plate of stool. So this is the mentality. You give it halava, and you give it a choice. Just like we have this thing, right, where you give the Bhagavatam or riches or whatever, the natural inclination, the child will crawl to it. So each living entity is attracted according to the different modes it's acquired. And the demons, they're acquired to the things which are adharmic. And Prabhupada also goes to explain that in the Western world, because there is an absence of Krishna consciousness, this is known as asura, ungodly. So and there's no, he says, wherever there is unrestriction of sense gratification, this is asura, the land of the asuras. So what we're doing here is trying to bring God consciousness into the world of godlessness. And even those who are trying to follow God, because they don't know what is following God and what is opposed to God's will, then even with all good intentions, sometimes they're not actually advancing. Still, Prabhupada said we should not discourage from following whatever path they're on. We should only encourage them more and to follow better. So if one is a Christian or a Muslim or Buddhist or whatever, then we encourage them to follow that and follow it better, because they'll find the teachings there. And ultimately we'll come to realize that Krishna consciousness is not different and gives more of the same. So many things which we are inclined towards. So this process of anartha-nivritti is a process of giving up these nivrittis, these unwanted things. And of course, the renunciation of Krishna consciousness is not so much giving up, but actually exchanging, so that the things which are then nivritti are not the things which are nivritti now. You know, when our heart and mind is attracted to the lower activities in the lower modes, then we engage in the sadhana bhakti, and in due course, then those things which we were inclined towards, we become disinclined. So by engaging Krishna consciousness, then we get a higher taste, and gradually we lose the attraction for the other things. That it becomes pale by significance, and it becomes insignificant. And we utilize everything in Krishna's service. And so Prabhupada is very expert in this art of Yukta Vairagya. He says, so this knowledge, we should understand that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nothing manufactured by us, so he is the proprietor. But because we are his parts and parcels, we have got the legal right to enjoy the property of the Father. That is all right. That is real communism. This is actual understanding of communism. Everything belongs to God. Just like the communists, they are thinking everything belongs to the state and the citizens must work and enjoy. So our philosophy is the same. Only difference is that they are ignorantly accepting the state as a proprietor. If they accept God as proprietor, then communism is perfect. So whether it's communism, capitalism, whatever, if we just consider that everything belongs to Krishna. So this is why Prabhupada was giving this peace formula, Bhoktam Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So if we understand that Krishna is the enjoyer, the proprietor, the well-wisher, then there can be peace. Without that understanding, no amount of negotiations can have any sustainable peace. So that is actually what's missing, this God consciousness. And then we think in terms of this country, this colour of skin, this gender, and then the whole thing becomes confused. In Kali Yuga, it becomes even more and more confused. Just when you think it can't get any worse, then someone else comes along. I remember when President Bush was in charge of America, people were thinking, oh, it can't get any worse. But then somebody else came along and it did get worse. And then we think, just when you think it wouldn't get any worse, it could happen again. History repeats itself. So this is an indication to us that accept that which is favourable for Krishna consciousness and reject that which is unfavourable. This is Prahlad Maharaj's teachings, and all these different activities we can engage in. Then we become very quickly purified. We lose the attraction for material life, and we gain an attraction for Krishna consciousness. But we do have to be patient, and we do have to practice diligently. Remember, Dhamraj in a class that Krishna, one devotees have been practicing, but not in the case to get this realization. He says, well, Krishna consciousness works, but sloppy Krishna consciousness doesn't work. So we can be sloppy about it. I kind of hard to do a bit of this, but Krishna would know it, so I don't chant all my events. Or maybe I'll be a bit lax on this principle. Or, I offended that devotee. He's not really a devotee anyway, he's a bit of a case, so I can say what I like about that one. So we pick and choose, and Mike, We might think she's creeping in, but she's galloping actually. And Maya's so clever, we cannot outsmart Maya. Even one devotee challenged Maya, the Guru challenged Maya, and so many devotees were thinking, oh no, this is very dangerous, and he didn't last. Within a short period of time, he was gone. So all these lessons are there, so many lessons for us to take, from things to do and what not to do. We have our own lessons, and we also have lessons from other people's activities. So this Krishna consciousness movement is educating what is pravriti, what is favourable to Krishna consciousness, and what should be written, what is unfavorable. And so this surrendering, if we consider ourselves, start to consider ourselves as a devotee of Krishna, think, well, a devotee of Krishna, I'm presenting myself as a devotee of Krishna, but I'm doing this. But a devotee of Krishna doesn't do this, so we can preach to ourselves that, my mind wants to do this, and the mind is pushing us, your mind, I'm a devotee now, we don't do these things. So we can convince our mind like that. And we see the acharyas, they speak to their mind like that. They don't just have a raging argument with the mind. Sometimes it forces us to do something, and then the very mind which convinces us to do it and it would be okay, immediately comes and criticizes us and says, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You call yourself devotee, you should just give up. You're an imposter. Don't believe it. We had to do service or eternal right, and we just continue. So sometimes some mistake. I was sitting on the wild road, so you can imagine that it won't be full of potholes like South Lanark. Well lit, speed limits, etc. Even in the just make aging personality who should have given up driving years ago. It happened just a few years before he passed. So what is on other roads, but even in Krishna consciousness, the royal road, then there may be some accident, but we shouldn't. That should stop us from driving. You may have some accident, but we continue. Just as the ground is the only resting place for one whose feet have slipped, then my dear Lord Krishna, although I have committed so many offences against you, then I have no other refuge. Anybody know this? I forget it, but this is the case. Sometimes we may slip, we may behave improperly, but we have to just get back up and try again and keep trying until we become perfect. That's why it's called a practice. Sadhana bhakti is a practice. We're learning to practice, just like if you want to learn to drive a car, the first time you sit in the car, and then you stall, you think, oh, this is no good, I can't drive. You just give up at the first instance. No, you might stall it, or the instructor might have to take control of it because you're veering off and you're going to hit another car in an oncoming direction. Sometimes, first time I sat my driving, then I was coming up to this junction and it said stop, and I didn't stop. I was going to give way, and I went on. I said to the guy, "I'm about to stop." I knew I'd failed my test. As soon as they do something like that, you know you failed your test. That's so defensive. I was just about to do that. So sometimes a devotee or the Lord will stop us from going to do something which is harmful because we don't know what's good for us sometimes, and we don't know what arrangement Krishna is making to protect us. So we have to be open to Krishna's arrangement, and that's difficult because we like to be in control, don't we? We like to have this Ishvara Bhav. We want in control of everything which is going on in our life, and we can't stand to not be in control of anything. But actually, we are not in control. We just think we are. So to change that way of thinking that Krishna is in control put ourselves in his hands, then things will happen. So a nice point Prabhupada was talking about here was that that we follow the instructions of the acharyas, the mahajans, etc., the shastra, the sadhus, and we follow that willingly, without argument, then we'll make advancement rapidly. Often the arguments we're put in place are just we want to keep a hold of our false ego, isn't it? It's not necessarily, if it's based on Shastra, trying to understand, that's one thing, but it says simply based on ego, then we're putting the brakes. Machita sarvadurgani prasada tarishasi attachet kamahankranana shoshasi vinakshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will overcome all obstacles of conditional life by my grace, prasada tarishasi. If, however, you act through false ego, not hearing me, then you will be lost. So we don't want to be in the lost department. We want to be in the found department. So this verse, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridayeshe, Krishna is not far away, but you have to search out where is Krishna within your heart. That is called yoga. So this process of back to yoga, which is what Prahlad Maharaj is teaching here, and he's getting chastised for it. Then, if any of you youngsters start preaching it in school and your teacher chastises, you can just call them Hiranyakashipu Chela, disciple of Hiranyakashipu. Of course, we have to be expert in doing things in such a way as we don't create disturbances, because we're not maybe as powerful as Prahlad Maharaj were. He was in a very high level of devotional service without any fear whatsoever. Can you imagine if someone throws you in a pit of snakes? How fearful would that be? Even one snake, right? You see a snake and you want to keep a distance from it. What to speak of getting thrown into a pit of snakes? So many things which Prahlad Maharaj was put through. But Krishna protected him in every way. And if we follow the instructions of Prahlad Maharaj, we also afford that protection. So yoga means controlling the senses. Without controlling the senses, you cannot practice any yoga. Nowadays, it has become a fashion, meditation yoga, but that is not bona fide yoga. You can just imagine what, if Prabhupada heard about what types of yoga were going on nowadays, what would they say about it? Beer yoga, goat yoga, naked yoga, so many things. It's just, it's not controlling the senses, it's getting into the senses. So Prabhupada here calls it a farce. Real yoga is controlling the senses and concentrating the mind on the Supreme Person. And so the first class yogi is one who's always thinking of Krishna. And I've just got another couple of points to make. Yeah, so Prabhupada says, we have so many attractions in this world, but if we engage in Krishna's service, then that becomes, rather than it becoming a negative thing, then it becomes a positive thing. Like you like to eat nice food, then just eat nice food, which is first offered to Krishna. And of course, when we're doing that, we learn how to prepare it for Krishna. If we don't taste it while we're offering, we don't try to enjoy it before it's there. And if somebody comes in and says, "Oh, that smells good. What's happening? What's for dinner?" Say, "Out the kitchen." We have instances like that. We're traveling Sanktan, and one devotee comes into the kitchen while there's cooking. He said, "Oh, that smells great," and the devotee just physically says, "Get out! Stop ogling the boga." Ogling means like lusting over it and eyeing it up. Of course, the devotees in those days were quite straight with each other. I remember also when hadn't long joined the temple and I went back to visit my family, And I stayed for a few days, and I didn't allow them in the kitchen. I commandeered the kitchen. Didn't allow my mother and her written because they were coming in and they were a relationship before Krishna got it. I thought that was bad until I heard another one. There's one devotee went home for Krishna, for Christmas. He probably went home for Krishna. And there was a turkey on the table, and he walked in and he just slipped off the table. He said, "What the hell is that?" So this is not exactly making people favourable. So often devotees aren't so inclined to go home for Christmas because they don't really see that as home any longer. They just see it as an austerity. They find it quite repulsive. Whereas you just look a few years before that, everybody's thinking, "Oh, great, Christmas is coming. The whole enjoying spirit's there." But we don't have that attraction any longer. So this proves that this process of Krishna consciousness is working. Sometimes it's kind of impossible to us. We think we're not really making much advancement, but every day we're making advancement. Every time we chant, every time we do some service, we read, we're making advancement, we're cleaning the heart. This process is going on. Every time we take Charnamrita, we see the deities, friendly to devotees, so many things. Prabhupada has made it so auspicious for us. So Prabhupada is quite humorous. He says, "So Patram Pushpam Plum to Yom." Krishna does not say, "Bring me something from the restaurant." He says, so in so many ways, Krishna is giving us a chance. So in the beginning, we might not be attracted or advanced immediately. It's foolishness to declare that Krishna is everywhere. Why should we go to the temple? Then if Krishna is everywhere, is he not also in the temple? But in the temple, we can worship Krishna directly. So this is the point Prabhupada is going to make, is that Krishna is a person. So we can see Krishna everywhere. That's a very advanced stage. But do we see Krishna? Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, so we have to qualify ourselves to see Krishna in water, to see Krishna in the sky, to see Krishna in everything. We can say these things, but do we actually see it? If we're still maintaining attachments, then we're not seeing Krishna in that. So this is, Prabhupada says, this is not some new movement. And even thousands of years ago, and Prahlad Maharaj, he was experiencing some opposition, because in the material world there's always the two types of persons, the asuras and the suras, those who are godly and those who are demoniac. And some people might say, well, that's quite strong terms, maybe there's not such a clear-cut thing. Of course, such a person wouldn't be of the godly category to come up with such a thing. We have to see things clearly, otherwise we don't know, right? If we muddy the water a bit, then we can't really see where's the mud, where's the water, it all looks the same. So we can just do anything. Then we don't have to follow strictly. Or we don't have to do this, but we can still do that. So this kind of justification of our Maya, we have to be more honest in that. Okay, we're in Maya, we can accept that, but if we see that Maya is the enemy, at least if we can see the enemy, there's a chance that we can fight with the enemy. If you're in the dark and the enemy's got night goggles, right, and you can't see them, but they can see you and they keep slapping you or punching you or something, then you're at a disadvantage. You don't even know who the enemy is. But then if you also get given night goggles, then you think, okay, even playing field here. So we want to be clear what is Krishna consciousness and what is not Krishna consciousness. And we can't expect to be immediately advanced. If we try to put ourselves forward, we're presenting ourselves as being very advanced. We're simply going to set ourselves up to be a fool, isn't it? And if we call someone a fool, we become their enemy, isn't it? I remember also Hare Krishna Prabhu was giving a lecture, and someone calls you a fool, it means they're your friend. Of course I'm a fool. If I don't think I'm a fool, then I'm a bigger fool. If Prabhupada calls himself fool number one, then how can we be any better? So this is the humility of the devotee. We don't just say Trinadapi Trinajana like a robot. We don't just say that. We actually try to do it with some meaning and feeling and thinking, how am I Trinadapi? When I was yelling at this devotee yesterday, was I in a humble state of mind? When somebody was giving me some instruction and I thought, who do you think you're talking to? Was in a humble state of mind. So every day we have this opportunity. Krishna has given us this opportunity to become a pure devotee, and it's a daily practice. And if we see it like that, then it becomes quite a nice adventure. So the adventure of the material world is actually, the real adventure is getting out of the material world, going back to the spiritual world. But it's not an adventure that we want to prolong. It's a dangerous place. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Step after step, there's danger. And as Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada's disappearance today, and he said that the material world is like a toilet. In the toilet, you do your business and you get out. You don't hang around. Right? People hang around toilets. They generally don't have a good reputation, do they? So we don't want to hang around in the toilet of the material world. We want to realize, okay, this place is contaminated. Let's just do what we've got to do and get out of here. And what have we got to do? Take to Krishna consciousness and try to give it to others. That's the main thing. Okay, we'll just stop there. Anyone get any comments or questions? Ken, you got a question? No? Okay. ISKCON Guru Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur ki, Shishiko Nitama Prashash ki, Jai Gaur Premanande.
Excuse Prabhupada.
So we're going to, if everyone stands up, we'll have Arti, and we can display Jai Anilo Premadana on the board here, please.